Good afternoon,
Good
Alkia.
afternoon.
Afternoon.
Oopsie.
Good afternoon, Mr. Thomas.
Hello.
Hi, Ryan.
Miss Newsom?
Hi, Eleanor.
I was not gonna go to Dreambox because every time when you got, it didn't get me there. So that's why I didn't do any because it kind of logged me out from.
Okay, no problem. I will try to help you get on later today or even tomorrow. We'll try and make sure you're able to get on. I do know that we were having some issues with Dreambox today. So it was not just you who was having trouble. So don't worry, it's okay. All right, let's see. Got a couple other students joining us, and then we will get started. And we've got a really fun class today for social studies. I've got 2 videos to share with you. And I hope you're as interested in this topic as I am. So we'll just wait to make sure that we have everyone who's joining coming to class.
Are you recording? Because I saw that recording.
Yes, I am recording this class so that I can save it for future reference. So it's just so that I can save it. If I teach this class again in the future, I want to remember what we did. And then, of course, any students who can't attend today, I can share it with them as well. Good afternoon, Zoe. Okay. So while we give it a second for our friends to join us, I am going to share our screen. Okay, we've got a couple more people joining. Let's see if we can invite anybody else. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. Okay, 7, 8, 9, 10, Janella. Okay, guys, we are going to get started, and I will share the lesson with any of our classmates who are missing. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that everyone is muted, and we will answer the questions when we do a brain pop, and we can unmute if I call on you, and of course we can use our chat feature to answer those questions. Okay, so we are looking at money, and we have been talking about money and what that is and how it was used by the early settlers in Bermuda in the 1600s. And so what I'd like for us to have a look at today is continuing from last week's idea of how the settlers did not have money. We were thinking about what other payments could be used. And I want you to remember this vocabulary term and this definition of money. Money is an item with an agreed upon value used as payment. And so we learned last week that the settlers wouldn't have had money. And so if they wanted to be paid for their work or services, or if they wanted to buy something from someone else, they had to trade or barter because they didn't just simply have money to use. So what are we looking at this week? How can we build on our learning and those ideas of trading from last week? Well, we've got 2 goals for today. We are learning to identify various types of payments that could have been made to an investor between 1612 and 1684. So what that means is we're going to look at the different types of payments that the investors got. the Bermuda Company over in London, they would have been sending over resources and giving supplies, and they wanted something in return. So what kind of payments did they get in return? That's what we're going to look at. We are also learning to describe how money makes it easier to trade, borrow, save, invest. And we're going to compare the value of goods and services. So remember that value means how much you believe it is worth. But you have to agree on its value, because what I think is very valuable, you might not think is valuable. You might think of the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. That means what you throw away, you don't think is valuable, but I actually like that. And so why are we learning this? This is because we want to be able to describe the role of money in everyday life. So we're going to look at how money or other payments were used in the 1600s, and we can compare that to today. So here are the success criteria. We're focusing mostly on all of the purple, but I will read them all out. I want you to follow along carefully. You can repeat it or read it at the same time out loud. At home, you do not have to unmute yourself, but I want you to follow along. So by the end of the class, we will be able to do the following. I can explain what trading is. I can explain what borrowing is. I can explain what saving is. I can explain what investing is. I can explain the difference between imports and exports. I can explain how money makes it easier to trade, save, and invest. So last week we looked at trading and bartering. And this week we're going to look a little bit more into saving and investing, and looking at imports and exports. Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure that everyone's in a space without any distractions, because we are ready to launch into our learning. So we looked at money. We don't have this money, or the settlers and the early colonists did not have this at their disposal. They couldn't use it. So what did they have? Well, if we look at money as coins, this would have been what they started as if we wanted to look at something that they have similar to what we use today. You can see some of those coins and what they would have looked like. And here's an example of a 3 pence. And if you look really closely on the left, the face of the coin on the left, you can start to make out the hog shape. So you can see the ears here. There's some hair, and then there are 4 legs at the bottom and the main body. So we know on our penny today, there's still that hog, that pig shape. So this would have been one from the early 1600s, perhaps. And I wanted to show you a video, a fun fact video, to kind of get you into the lesson today. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to share another screen. And it's a video about the value of this coin. Now, a 3 pence would have been considered the same as our 1 cent coin today. A penny, 1 penny. Not worth too much. We throw them into fountains and make a wish. We find them on the floor outside in our garden and sometimes leave them there. We find them at the bottom of bags in our pockets. It's just a penny. Nobody really cares about pennies too much. But this coin from a long time ago is not the same as a coin that you might just throw away or give away. So we're going to have a look at what that coin is actually worth. What is the value of that coin there in this image? All right, let's see. Here we go.
Lot 3676 in Heritage Auctions September 2019 Long Beach Signature Sale is a fascinating Summer Islands 3 pence W11420, graded genuine for environmental damage, XF details by PCGS. Produced circa 1616 in England for use in Bermuda, the Summer Islands coinage was the first money struck for the English colonies in America. The coins had little intrinsic value, but circulated as a secondary medium of exchange in the islands for a few years, like tokens.
So I just paused there. So this would have been used in 1616, so it would have been dated, and they mention it was used as a secondary source of payment. So we've already talked about what the primary payments would have been, or monetary items would have been. And let's find out, well, what was it worth? So what he's talking about here is an auction. An auction is where lots of people gather together and they're trying to sell something. And if I say I'll buy it for $10, someone else might say, I'll buy it for $15. I want it for $20. Someone else might say, I'll give you $100 for it. So this would have gone up in an auction. So he's just describing what it is, and he's hoping to persuade the audience to barter and to try and save what they want to pay for it, and hopefully a lot of money.
4 denominations were produced: the 2 pence, 3 pence, 6 pence, and shilling. The 3 pence is the rarest denomination, with only 7 examples known until this coin recently surfaced on Bermuda. All the denominations feature a similar design, with a hog on the obverse and a sailing ship on the reverse. Virtually all Summer Islands coinage has been found in soil, and all examples show some degree of corrosion on the surfaces. This newly discovered coin is one of the most attractive examples, with XF sharpness on the design elements. The reverse die alignment is about 225 degrees. The steel brown and silver gray surfaces are lightly corroded and retain traces of the original silver wash. With 8 examples known and only 4 in private hands, it may be years before a comparable example of this rare colonial issue becomes available. We expect intense competition from colonial specialists when this lot is called.
So this is the video that they would have played at this auction, and they talked about it being very rare. And so I wanted to share that with you and to actually tell you how much that coin was actually sold in auction for. And I'm just looking here for my notes so I can give you the exact amount. That coin was sold in auction for $96,000. $96,000. That coin, so rare, from a long time ago. It's corroding. You can barely make out the images on it. You can barely read or see the dates or the sailing ship on the other side, but someone bought it for $96,000. They believed it was so valuable, it was worth so much to them to collect, and perhaps they would have put it into a museum or a gallery with their collection. So it's quite interesting. Something you might find on the ground that doesn't look too nice could actually have a high value. It could be worth a lot. So remember that vocabulary word, value. So when did we start using money? He talked about a secondary source and the money being a secondary source, but what were the primary sources? So we know that coins have been around for about since 3,000 years ago. So first in Turkey, they had coins, and then in 1250, they had a coin introduced in Florence, Italy, called the florin. And then people agreed on what it was worth. Now, we might not agree on what that coin that was sold in auction is worth. I don't think it's worth $96,000, but back 3,000 years ago, they would have had to agree on the worth. And then they could spend their coins on goods all throughout Europe and throughout the world. Now, paper money was introduced first by the Chinese, and then Marco Polo brought that idea to Europe in 1290, and then paper money was first used in Europe in 1661. So many years later. We didn't get paper money. We were using coins, but even before the coins, we had a different system, which is called trading or bartering. And so we know that we would have used trade to have items such as chickens. I'll trade you my 7 chickens for 5 bags of grain or corn or food. And that's how they would have made payment. I would like to buy that. And so I'll trade you what I have and what I can give you. But we first would have to agree on the worth. If 1 bag is worth 2 chickens and I want to have 5 bags, I have to make sure I give you 2 chickens per 5 bags. So you have to use a little bit of math as well. So we're going to watch this brain pop video, and this will give you some ideas on how money would have worked, how payments would have worked without money many years ago. So let's go ahead and start our brain pop. Here we go. And we'll see our favorite character, Moby.
Hey, what happened? It fell. Off of what? Dear Tim and Moby, what is money? From Potzer. Money is, money is currency. You can buy stuff with it. This is harder than I thought. Oh, right. Once upon a time, people lived off the land. We ate what we could find or grow. Greetings, neighbor. Barter or trade was one of the earliest transactions on Earth. The idea is pretty simple. One person may have plenty of cows, but no grain. Another person has grain to spare, but no milk. Hey, I sure could use some of that there grain. What say we trade this here cow for one of your sacks? Markets let people trade on a larger scale. But deciding, say, exactly how many chickens equals a cow is a problem. And if your cow is worth 10 chickens, but you only need 5, then you're stuck. Traders started using commodities like bags of barley as payment. But grain spoils, and bugs like to eat it. Traders needed some sort of token that would last. These cowrie shells were used as currency in Central Asia and Africa. In places far from the ocean, the shells were valuable because they were exotic, not to mention small and durable. Each part of the world developed its own preferred currency, like shell and bead necklaces, seeds, feathers, and salt. But feathers and seeds blow away, and salt is ruined by moisture. We needed something small, valuable, and long-lasting. Precious metals like gold and silver had value all over the world. They were traded in pieces, and their value was determined by weight. Since weight varied from scale to scale, metal was weighed before every new transaction. Eventually, someone came up with a brilliant idea to mark the metal's weight right on it. We still use a version of these coins today. Coins aren't always practical for big payments. They're heavy, and the people in line behind you get really annoyed. Paper money was invented to solve that problem. Originally, every note of paper money in the US represented a quantity of gold held by the United States. We still use coins for small payments, and some people even barter now and again. Sure, I'll lend you my bike if you take out the trash for the next 3 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks. Okay, just this week, but that's my final offer. We use money to pay for goods like food and clothing, and services like public transportation and entertainment. Which brings me to an important point. Our currency has value because all of us agree that it does. Unlike animals, bags of grain, or gold nuggets, paper money doesn't have any other value except as currency. So if everyone on Earth suddenly decided paper money wasn't worth anything, we'd be left with a whole lot of odd-sized paper pieces floating around. But for now, our system of money seems to work just fine. Well, it's just that I've been putting half my allowance in that pig since I was 8 years old.
Okay. So we saw there the different types of payments that would have been made many years ago before we had coins and before we had paper money. So what was used in Bermuda to trade, barter, or sell, or make payments? Can anyone remember? I'm looking for someone to answer. What was used in Bermuda before we could have coins? Mayoshe.
It was Capella?
Begins with the letter T. Let's see if we have a friend that can help us out. I believe I see Ryan's hand up.
Tobacco.
Wonderful. Tobacco. Very good answer. Tobacco would have been used. Back then, everyone smoked, which meant everyone wanted tobacco. And so all the settlers were put to work to grow tobacco on farms. So imagine if one bag that we saw to trade was worth 10 cents. A farm owner could then sell that bag or export that bag out of Bermuda to another country. But to get it to another country, he'd have to get it across the sea. And so he knew a merchant with a ship, and that merchant agreed to buy that bag of tobacco for $1. Now the farm owner would then get 90 cents for every bag that he sells. He could save it. He would have bought it for 10 cents and he could sell it on and make a profit, make a little bit more, save something, just like how Moby had a piggy bank. Now he'd have to give a little bit back to the Somers Isle Company investors, but let's imagine that merchant then went on. He traveled across on his ship to another country in Europe, and then he found a trader, and the trader bought it for $7, and then he would have had it come in as an import. Then he sold it onwards for someone for $12, and then on to a grand merchant for $20 to take it completely around the world. That is how trade can work. It can start off small and actually get quite large. And this is the image that we saw last week of kind of the idea of how it starts. It starts on the farm, bagging them up, barreling them up. You sell them onwards for $1, sell them onwards again, even more, sell them on for even more, and so on, until it gets to its final destination. Now, I want you to remember that an investor is someone who makes an investment in something. That means that they give out money or supplies. So the London investors would have been providing seeds for the tobacco or different supplies for different food items. And they wanted to gain something back. And so this is an example of how the investors would have gotten something back. The farm would have grown all this tobacco and they would have given that back to the investors to sell for that $20. Of course, the farm only made 90 cents, but that investor gained a lot back for helping the island. So when you think of saving, we've heard in the video that today money could be stored in a piggy bank or in your wallet or in a big bank for future usage if you want to make purchases. But during the trade and bartering system, animals could die, the food could spoil, and those tobacco barrels could spoil, and it said lots of bugs and flies came in, which meant you might have lots of money. You could be considered rich if you had a huge storage room full of tobacco. But then all of a sudden, if it all spoils, or if you had a room full of chickens and they all got sick and died, sadly, you actually wouldn't have any money, which means you would not be considered rich. So this is why these things kind of caused a little bit of problems for those early settlers. They had to really think, what can I trade you with? And it has to be, what do I want to be paid with? If I go and plant all these fields of corn for you, what would I like you to pay me with? I have to pick something smart. And so that's what they would have thought about. During this time, Bermuda, the British colony, which we still are, was run by the Bermuda Company. And those were the overseas investors. So you could see the little red pin there in London. They used their money to invest in Bermuda, and they hoped to earn a profit. So we would have had trade going on within Bermuda, but then we would have exported and sent back tobacco or different supplies to the London investors. So the London investors first provided the colonists and the settlers with goods, and then they had to send things back. That is how their partnership worked. Something was imported and then something was exported. Import coming in, export going out. So what do we trade today? Do we trade things today? Well, this is one that comes to mind when we think of games. Can anybody tell me what they see here? How would you play this game? Have a look at what you see. What are those? Does anyone know? Anyone know what those games are? What are they? I'm looking for a hand up, or anyone in the chat. Caius, is your hand up? You want to answer? No? I think I saw Ryan's hand go up again. Go ahead, Ryan. What are those?
Pokemon cards.
Pokemon cards. And how do they work? What do you do with Pokemon cards? How does this game work?
You collect, trade, and battle with other people with your Pokemon cards.
Ah, I like how you use those words. Collect.
You've also got a lot of
You trade, you collect them first, you trade them with other people, you can battle them for them. Okay. So this is similar to what the early settlers would have done. They would have had something worthy with a high value, and then you could have had something that was worthy and had a high value, and you wanted to trade with each other. So it's just like what we do today. This is an example of how you might trade today with your friends. An adult, any adults in the room might know for sure how we have to import and export things. And the most important one right now during the pandemic is importing. We need things to come into the island because none of us can get on a plane to go and buy them. Everything has to be here in the stores for us to buy here. So we have to purchase from another country and it gets imported in. So I've got an English flag here, for example. A ship could be coming from England, bringing in lots of goods to Bermuda. And also Bermuda could be exporting things that we'd like to sell, especially anything created by a Bermudian or even grown by a Bermudian locally. And we can export and send those items to another country. And here's one that I thought is most important right now when I think of certain foods, and definitely healthy foods. Bananas. Bananas, bananas, bananas. I have 3 really tiny Bermuda banana trees. They just got planted, and it will take about 3 years for me to grow any bananas. So I buy my bananas in the grocery store. But when I go to the grocery store, there aren't any bananas. The usual big yellow bananas, there aren't any. And that is because they are not being imported in. They are not being shipped in. And it's because I believe there's a problem with pests and bugs that are actually destroying the bananas. And so we can't get any. So you can see here, and then I'll check the chat for any suggestions. Someone would grow their bananas in a farm, and then the bananas are picked. They get packaged, and then they get shipped on a ship to a ripening center or somewhere in North America. And then the bananas are transported to a market. But with Bermuda, those bananas have to come from the farm, some to another location, another country, and then they have to transport again to Bermuda. So it's a lot involved to get those bananas imported. It's the same for all those packaged cereals and snacks you see on the shelves. Anything that does not have a label that says made in Bermuda, it all comes from somewhere else. It all gets imported. Now I saw a couple more hands, which means you're all very engaged and you're listening well. Very good job. Ryan, go ahead.
I forgot my answer because you already said it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say it in your own words? What was it exact? Because I said a lot. What was it that you were going to say? And it's okay if you repeat the exact same thing as me. Yeah? No? No? Okay, no problem. And you can always type in the chat and I will read that out. So that's an example, and I found it funny. I just quickly typed in Google Maps, a banana farm, and I found one in Florida, and it's called Going Bananas. And I believe they sell or export bananas. And I just wanted to show on the map that it has to travel to Bermuda. It's got to get from there and ship to Bermuda. So hopefully we get a shipment in, but otherwise I will try to shop locally, and I will try to find a market or a farm that has Bermuda bananas. But I know sometimes they're seasonal, so it depends if they're growing right now. So this brings me to your homework, and I'm sorry that these images are not in the correct spot, where I would like for you to have a discussion with a family member about whether you would want to be paid for your financial investments, like the Bermuda Company investors, using a non-monetary system. So have a think. That means you're not being paid with money, coins, or cash, but rather something like tobacco or another good or services. What type of good would you like to be paid with? So we heard from Moby and his friend that some countries used shells and even feathers and then grains. But they talked about each of those sometimes having some sort of challenges, especially grains. They could blow away, they could be eaten, they could spoil and go rotten. Feathers certainly could blow away or get lost. But something like shells or beads, I kind of like that idea. Can you think of other examples that you could use to trade with or to get paid by? So if you are a farmer and you would like to sell 200 chickens, or maybe they laid eggs and you've got 1,000 eggs, what would you like to be paid for those 1,000 eggs? If you're about to supply the grocery store with those eggs, what would you like to be paid with if you could not be paid with coins or paper money? Does anyone have any ideas so far? I think I saw Mayoshe's hand up. You can unmute. Go ahead.
I would like to be paid with two things: seashells and love. That's all.
Those are great answers. Seashells. So Mayoshe is thinking of seashells, especially in Bermuda over on the beaches. Lots of people could potentially use seashells for payment. It would be a hard task to collect them, but if you have them, why not? And also love. Now, love would be a difficult payment to give, but I do understand what you mean by love. Maybe they can help you with things and care, help you around the house wherever you live. Good answer. What else would anyone like to be paid with? Caius.
Tobacco and cows.
Cows. Okay. So similar to the
Cows.
Say that one more time.
Cows.
A house. Yes.
Cows.
Type it in the chat for me, please. I think you're saying
oyster.
Okay, pearls. I did hear that correctly. That's a good answer. Pearls. All right, so what I want you to do is think of many different items. Your family members might have different answers as you. And so what I want you to do for homework, this is social studies and art combined. I'd like you to draw pictures of your different payments that you would like to have from the investors. So I'm just gonna minimize and then bring it back up so I can move the pictures out of the way so we can read that sentence there. So it says, draw pictures of different payments you would like or that you would have liked investors to have received. So if they're going to receive a profit and gain something back in return, or if you're going to be paid as a settler, what would you like to be paid with? So Caius is going to draw his oyster and shells. He's going to draw tobacco. And remember to think of choosing wisely. So I can think very quickly. If it's an item that everyone can just find very easily, will that work? For example, a flower. Everyone can just go out and pick flowers all day long. But how would you make sure that someone deserved to have that many flowers, for example? And if you chose food, would your food spoil and go rotten? So I want you to try and think very carefully of what type of item you would use to be paid. And I want you to draw 4. So just like in this image, there are the beads and shells, feathers, grains, and sand or rice. I want you to choose and draw at least 4 payment types. Okay, and you can bring them with you to Wednesday's class, and you can share it in our literacy session before we do our join class session. And also you can take photos of it and send it to Miss Newsom, because I would love to put these in the gallery for Prospect Primary. We have our online gallery, so your artwork can go in there. And perhaps I can work on drawing an example as well. And you can add color. Take your time and really make it a masterpiece. Are there any questions? Any questions? I'm looking for hands up. No? Okay, so here just a fun fact. So 2 main types of payment. The tobacco, because many people smoked and they would love to get paid with tobacco because they would smoke it and use it. They didn't save it and it didn't really get wasted. And then there was ambergris, which we know as, it was found in the bellies of whales. So you can imagine how it gets out of the belly of a whale. So either up or down. And I guess it would have washed up onto the beaches. And it looked, oh, I thought I had an image of it. I'll have to get one up for you. It looked like a rock, and on the inside, it almost looked like some kind of gem or jewel. And that was often used as payment. And it says it down here, a fun fact. A British couple looking to cash in a discovery of a large piece of whale vomit was possibly worth more than $70,000. Now, today it's used in perfume to help it last longer, to help the scent last longer. It's a little fun fact for you guys. So I will end there. I'll send the homework to you, and I can't wait to see your pictures, your artwork. Give me a thumbs up for today. We're running out of time. I would have shared the learning goals, but it might cut out on us. So I will see you again tomorrow.
Okay.
Good job, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
It's less than 1 minute.
Mayoshe.
Bye, everybody.
Mayoshe, I'll see you at 2:30.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Mayoshe.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Miss Ming, you can send me
The
your
dream
invite
box.
if you want, and I can send it to her.
Miss Nissim, can you send me the dream box thing?
Oh, I
Yes,
usually
I
just
will.
go on.